Today's video is the second part of the 4-part series discussing 5 reasons building owners do not approve important fee proposals. Now, part 1 and part 2 are unrelated. You don't have to watch them in any particular sequence. I will link part 1 at the end of this video and you can watch it if you've not watched it already. The intent of these 4 sessions is to discuss some of the roadblocks that stops customers from approving our important fee proposals and prevents them from giving us more money. We're generally not making it easy for our customers to give us money. We're making it difficult for our customers to give us money. So please do me a favor and listen really carefully. Pause the video, write down some notes, think about what I'm talking about. Go and talk to the account manager, the sales manager, the branch manager, and at your company try and work out how can you break down some of these roadblocks, earn more money, and provide more value to your customers. So the second reason why our customers don't approve our fee proposals is because we don't explain the urgency very well. We put together a fee proposal, it has the dollar number, we don't explain the urgency of this very well. So for consistency with the previous video, I'm going to talk through BMS or BAS server upgrades for consistency. But essentially you should have a full list of all your revenue streams. So for example, here I've got we have server upgrades, field controller, end of life upgrades, control strategy optimization upgrades, network upgrades, cybersecurity upgrades, technology upgrades, energy management systems, building analytics, digitized maintenance, whatever it is. At your company, you should have this whole list of revenue streams and then an active marketing sales strategy below them that breaks down each one of these issues. So we're going to talk about server upgrades, part 1, part 2. But you should do the exact same exercise for all your other revenue streams. Break down the roadblocks, have a 3-year strategy before you issue the fee proposal. Now, generally, as a BAS consultant, I review a lot of BMS companies' fee proposals. The building owner says, Bryce, give us a fee to review this and provide a recommendation. Should we do this, yes or no? So I read a lot of these proposals. And when I read BMS server upgrade fee proposals, they always say the same thing or something similar. They say that you have Windows Server 2012, it was obsolete, October 2022, and Microsoft will no longer support this operating system, which means that you no longer get bug fixes, patches, security updates. You don't get those sort of things. That is true. If you don't upgrade the server, Microsoft doesn't release, all those things. But that's not a very urgent thing. You're the facility manager. You read this and think, oh, well, I don't get bug fixes and security updates, but the BMS still works. Every morning the mechanical plant starts up from the time schedule, the graphics work, the alarms work, the trends work, the reports work, everything works. It's not very urgent. That's not a very compelling argument to make as to why you need to upgrade the obsolete BMS server. 1 month goes by, everything works. 3 months go by, everything works. 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, the time goes by and the BMS continues to operate. That is not a very compelling argument. So let's talk through a more compelling argument to make, something that would get your customers' attention. Let's talk through this. So pretend you said this. This is what you said to the owner. So listen here, not as casual as that, but you have Microsoft Windows Server 2012. It will be obsolete in 6 months' time. What happens then is, if the server had to fail when the operating system was obsolete, we buy a brand new server, the brand new server will be shipped with the latest Microsoft operating system, Windows Server 2022 at the moment. Now we can downgrade operating systems down to 2019, 2016, but you cannot downgrade a server operating system to an unsupported version. So if you buy us a brand new box and you call out the service technician and we arrive 2 hours late as a brand new server sitting there, we can downgrade the operating system, but not down to Windows Server 2012. And this BMS application, graphics, alarms, trends, and reports, it was designed and tested to work on Windows Server 2012. It wasn't designed and tested to work on 2016 on future operating systems that we don't even know about, which means that today, when the server failed and you called us out, we cannot fix the server. We cannot install this older version of our BMS application onto a newer operating system, it doesn't work. So there's nothing we can do. You have no access to the BMS until we fix this. So you can't log into BMS and look at graphics, alarms, trends, and reports. You can't adjust set points. You can't change time schedules. If a tenant calls in for an after hours request to say that the air conditioning should run on a Saturday, that doesn't normally do that. We can't log into BMS and put that after hours in there. We can't adjust the time schedule. You'll have to call us out. We'll attend site. We'll plug our laptops into one of the network controllers or field controls, and we'll adjust that after hours request. You don't have access, you might not have access to energy management system data, electric meters, water meters, gas meters, the consumption. If you're doing some sort of energy efficiency reporting, you won't have that data. You won't have any of that. So what we'll do is we'll go back and put together a fee proposal to upgrade the BMS application to be the correct version for the latest operating system. So that's about 2 weeks for us to get you a fee proposal. And then you will sit on the fee proposal for about 2 to 4 weeks. It probably wasn't forecasted. There's probably no money for it. It's probably an issue. And then you'll issue us a purchase order. We will gear somebody up. We'll buy the server, 2 to 6 week lead time. So best case scenario, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, best case scenario is you have no access to the BMS for between one or 2 months. That gets their attention. Now the customer's thinking, whoa, I got no access to BMS for 2 months. I can't deal with temperature complaints. I can't adjust things. I can't override things. I can't see what's going on. Even if the BMS is running normally, because without the server, it'll still run. It might be running normally, but if you can't see the thing, if you can't see the BMS, the mechanical system, the temperatures, it makes people very worried. So now you've explained to them that if you allow the operating system to become obsolete, we can't fix this immediately. There will be some sort of a time delay, 1 or 2 months, for us to install the latest version of our BMS application, graphics, alarms, trends, and reports. There's a time delay there. Now it gets worse than that, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, because our current BMS application, the current version that supports Windows Server 2022, is actually a completely different product to the old obsolete BMS application. So for example, if you have Siemens, their current BMS is called the Zego CC. It is a completely different product to the previous one. If you have Schneider Electric, the EcoStructure BMS application is completely different to the previous version. If you have like Andover Continuum or one of those older BMS applications, the BMS company, we can't just install our latest BMS application, just install it. It's a brand new product. We've got to rebuild the whole thing. We've got to build the whole new database, rebuild all the database, the graphics, the alarms, the trends. We've got to redraw 100 to 500 graphic pages, bind all the points. Our current BMS application is completely different to the one you have now. The one you have now cannot be installed on a new operating system. It's an obsolete product. Now you're dead in the water for 6 months. 6 months, and it's a $200,000 or $300,000 project. And then what often happens is, often a server upgrade, if it's a new product, will trigger the requirement to also upgrade the network controllers, which sometimes you have to upgrade the network controllers for the new BMS application. What I'm trying to say here is that's a very compelling story. Now the owner's thinking, you know what, like in 2 years' time, when this operating system is obsolete, I can't just ignore it. I have to fix this because I can't risk having 1, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months of no visibility of the BMS. I see this all the time when this happens. Now this sort of a story, when you're taking your customer on the journey, as I touched on the previous video, you can't just communicate that with a surprise fee proposal. There's a journey around explaining the whole thing to them. It's a 3-year sales funnel. It's a 3-year sales funnel where you're just socializing the idea 5 years ago, 3 years ago about, hey, when this happens, this is what could happen. And then you update the capital expenditure plan and you have those meetings with them every year. That's what you have to do. BMS companies need to start acting like consultants and less like contractors. So on the left there on the slide, this BMS server is one of many sales strategies. You should have a sales strategy for field controller end-of-life upgrades, control strategy optimization, ASHRAE guideline 36 type stuff, network upgrades, security upgrades, technology upgrades, all those things. There should be an active strategy around taking your customer on a journey and not just give them a flippant fee proposal. So this is like a bit of a bonus slide. It's slightly related, not quite related. I only learned this a couple of years ago, so I want to share the story with you. So I'll read this out. The idea here is that where does the money come from? This money you're asking for, where does it come from? In my experience on the jobs that I work on, 30 to 50 story commercial offices in the city, most buildings are not owned by the building owner. Most buildings are not owned by the building owner. The building owner, so in Australia we have ISPT, Dexus, Charter Hall, Mirvac, a lot of them. Those companies that we call the building owner, they don't own the building, they manage the fund. They manage the investment fund. So when AMP Capital sold its buildings to Mirvac and Dexus, etc., they didn't sell the buildings. They sold the management of the fund. The fund is the shareholders. The shareholders own the building. That company doesn't own the building. They're managing the investment fund. So you as the BMS or BAS contractor, it's you, then it's the facility manager, then the asset manager, then the investment manager, then the fund manager, then the shareholders. Now sometimes the building owner might own the building, but my experience with the jobs I work on, that's not the case. I think that's a bit more rare that happens, that a company actually owns the building. They spend $500 million and they actually own that building. So the owner is actually the investment fund, the shareholders, and they're investing money. They want to get a return on their investment. They want to make money every year from this building, because this building, they rent the floors out and they earn rent back, and that's how the fund makes more money. So in Australia, a lot of our pensions, our super funds, these pensions build buildings, these funds build buildings, and then they rent out the floors, they make money. That's how your pension grows. So your employer puts money into your pension and they use that money to buy buildings. I'm not a specialist in this, so just take this as food for thought. So what I said previously was that you got to remember that you are competing with other services, mechanical, electrical, fire, hydraulic, security, lifts. There might be a lobby upgrade. Maybe there's some architectural stuff going on. You are competing with other services that want this money. It's not just, hey, building owner, give us some cash. It doesn't work like that. There's a massive process to get money released. Shareholders don't want to give you money. They want to make more money. They don't want to give away money. And I'm sometimes involved in these projects where, I might spend 2 or 3 months working with the client and their project managers to put together the funding request. Why do we need this money? What's the problem? What are the risks? So I will sometimes work on supporting the funding request for a few months before these projects actually become real projects. So your capital expenditure plan that you're working on, the 10-year CapEx plan, it needs to be more urgent than everybody else that's competing for money. Because what I think is happening is, it's not a fact necessarily, but before COVID, building owners had lots of money. That all these buildings, all the floors were rented out. They were earning lots of money. They had lots of money for CapEx works. Nowadays, since COVID, there's a lot more pressure on these building owners. A lot of the floors, it might be vacant. They're not earning as much rent. There's, higher interest rates and things. There isn't as much money as there used to be. And it even seems to me like nowadays, you do the right thing. You have your capital expenditure plan. You help the customer forecast money. They do forecast the money. CapEx is available. In some cases, CapEx is even being cancelled because there's problems, right? So we don't have the amount of CapEx we used to have. And you're competing with everybody else. Your request for money has to be more compelling than the other services that are also competing for that money. Plus if you think about it, everyone is working from home at the moment. My wife and I, we both work at home full time. She used to work in an office in the city. So, it's tough times at the moment. And we can't just be loose about this, just sending in a random fee proposal for important work. We've got to have a strategy towards getting these proposals approved. We've got to have the money forecasted, help our customers forecast the money, and we have to explain the urgency of why this is important. Why this is more important than everybody else that's asking for money, a generator upgrade, or whatever else is going on. Are you starting to get an idea now of how difficult it is to get a fee proposal approved? Just from these first 2 weeks, still got a few more to go, right? It's very difficult to get fee proposals approved. And like I said before, I've given you one example. We're talking through the server upgrade only, but you could spend months and months and months developing proper sales funnels and strategies for marketing and sales, 3-year strategies to get stuff approved. We genuinely, in my opinion, we make it difficult for our customers to give us money. We make it difficult for them to give us money. That's ridiculous. BMS companies, in my opinion, are focusing on completely the wrong things. The stuff we focus on, like writing software code, like doing design stuff, that stuff's not important. Well, like, obviously it is important. Like, good engineering, good design is important, but that stuff doesn't earn money. We are teaching our staff how to build the BMS, how to build it. It's important, but that doesn't win you more projects. That doesn't make you more money. That doesn't help you build a 10-year pipeline of project work. There's a lot more to building automation than writing software code, downloading into a controller. Right, that's it. Thank you for watching. I'll try and get in the next week or two. I'll try and get out the third part of this video, and there's one left after that. So keep an eye out for it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.